Hey guys, Kyle here. If you're in a Skool community, you know how much money is possible to make out there. If you just take a look at the Skool leaderboards, you can see that people are making tens of thousands of dollars a month just by selling access to a community with a skill that they're already good at. Now, one of the easiest ways to grow your Skool community is by using something like Facebook ads, for example. There's tons of different ways you can grow your Skool community. You can use things like organic content, email lists, newsletters, and of course, ultimately, one of the easiest ways to do so, which is with something called paid ads. Basically running advertisements on Facebook and Instagram. By utilizing this strategy, you can make upwards of $20,000 to even $50,000 a month at the highest level just by running consistent ads to your Skool community. Inside of this video, I'm going to show you step by step the exact way that I go through to make my own ads for my Skool community and start posting them, which allows me to generate over $15,000 a month for my Skool community. So without further ado, let's get into it. All right, so first things first, I wanted to show you guys really quick inside what my dashboard looks like. As you can see, we're at about $15,171 in monthly recurring revenue. I can even hit the refresh button here, which will actually take me out of that screen. And as you can see, it's still 15,000. So I'm not doing any inspect element, anything here. This is a real Skool community. Now, one of the best ways that I've found to grow Skool communities very quickly and do so without having to post daily organic content or worry about posting consistently is by running Facebook ads and Instagram ads. Now, one of the main things that really matters the most when you guys are running these types of ads is, believe it or not the settings that I see a ton of people out there get tripped up about most of the time. But the truth is, your ad creative, the visual part of your ad, is pretty much 95% of what makes your ad campaign successful. Now, what I want to do real quick is go through the way that I make my own ad creatives currently right now and show you guys some techniques and strategies you can use to make really good ad creatives extremely quickly. Because one of the biggest reasons why people are successful with Facebook ads is because they can use them and recreate them over and over and over again in a very consistent and quick manner. One of the things that's led to the most amount of success inside of my Skool community is simply by recreating ad creatives on a consistent daily or even weekly basis. What this basically does is it reduces something called ad fatigue, which can happen if you have a consistent series of ads that go in front of people over and over again, which leads to the viewer of the ad ultimately getting bored, tired, or just they don't want to see that advertisement anymore. This lead to poor performance, worse conversion rates, and even worse, wasted money on that advertisement. That's why you constantly have to keep remaking ads and making new angles and consistently reinventing what you're actually showing people. Now, there's two main ways that I make ad creatives. The first of these is going to be in something called Figma, which is basically like a graphic design software where you can make visuals. Now, as you can see, I opened up Figma right here and I have a massive file of various different ad creatives that I've made over the last couple of years. And I just kind of want to go through each specific one and show you what works, what doesn't, and kind of my thought process behind how I make my ad creatives for my Skool community. We'll kind of start up here. These were some of the first ads I ever ran to the community. As you can see right here, they're not that complicated. They're very, very simple, very easy to read, and they use a lot of things that many other ad creatives out there use that have been very successful. One of those is text. Text is pretty much always going to be a top performer. One of the things that I did find on other types of creatives that I would run, let's say they were more visual heavy. So a good example was a recent one. I think it's all the way down here. Here we go. These dumpster images that I used Google's Nano Banana, which is an AI image generation software. These images did not perform that well. And there's a couple of reasons why that's the case. Number one is that they might just not be, inherently clear on what exactly it is that the person should click on the ad for. And then number two is that most people like text. Let's say you're scrolling your Instagram, right? You're scrolling, and something like this pops up. More than likely, many people are going to see this and just keep scrolling. They're not going to stop and read. They're not going to try to see what it says or anything like that. And there are, of course, a few people who they might find this image to be somewhat striking, and they might end up actually saying, okay, let's see what this actually is going to do. But for the most part, it seems like text performs much, much better on static images than just these kind of regular visuals right here. I'm not saying that these don't work. It really depends on the context of what you're trying to sell in the first place, but these specific images were not some of our best performers. Now, what's funny is if you actually go up to these ones, which are almost pure text, right, where they are literally almost like big billboards, basically, these ones performed much better than these ones. And then these were just kind of basically selling a new way on starting a new type of AI agency and kind of how to go about and do that process. Same with these two. Once again, very text heavy here, but these ones performed much, much better. Now, what we're going to do is we're going to zoom out here a little bit, and I'm going to head back up to our earlier ads that we started running in the process of the Skool community. And these were kind of our greatest hits, if you will. These were some of our best performing ads that we ever ran. And that kind of is in this group right here. Very, very simple. We just showcased basically what they get, right? So this one, we had a huge folder of N8N templates that we were selling. At the time it was 20 plus. Now it's like over like 2,000 or something insane like that. But we basically just said 20 plus plug and play AI automations. We highlighted that automations word to kind of make it stand out a little bit more. To this day is one of the best ways that we've found, at least, to convey the idea of a collection of things, right? Many of you out there may have a Skool community based on templates or a collection of assets or just any kind of large collection of something. And this specific kind of demonstration or visual demonstration of that with a visual of just a Mac OS folder plus the N8N logo on top of it is also kind of an example of how that works. Then if we go down here, we have the little call to action where it literally just says download all of them. And then we have the Skool community and then our little logo next to it. So that way it's very obvious as to what they're getting inside of there. Then we have another one example right here. This AI automation sells for, then we have an exact number. And then we said copy and paste it. Once again, red arrow pointing to join our Skool community. And then again, here we did a before and after. Outcome driven ads are very, very likely to perform very, very well. If you're running an outcome driven ad, I'd highly recommend including kind of what the dream outcome is for your offer. So let's say you're running a Skool community about starting an e-commerce business, right? Where you're starting a Shopify store and you're drop shipping or you're doing something, right? People are only really going to care, especially if you're running cold meta ads, which is actually our bread and butter. It's what we really do to make most of our money inside of our Skool community. We focus on the outcomes, right? So let's say the outcome of your program or of your Skool community is to build a successful e-commerce store, successful dropshipping store, and replace your 9-to-5 income. Or maybe it's, let's say it's a side hustle, right? Make 5K a month, 10K a month. We would want to include that outcome kind of like we did here in the visual, in the ad creative itself, just because it gets people a lot more excited about what potentially they could do with your offer. And obviously it's much more eye-catching to see money, right? People tend to really like money, especially when it's communicated in a visual sense like this. Now, one of the things you might notice is a couple of these are labeled, right? So this says vertical, this says vertical, these say square, these say square. We have two different variations, right? We have our vertical variation, which is kind of what you would see on an iPhone, for example. And then we have our square variation, which basically is kind of what you would see on like an Instagram. If you're scrolling through your main feed, this is kind of how it would display. And one of the reasons we do that is because even though Facebook has added some new features where stuff automatically gets cropped down to the proper size, it still has a few things that need to be kind of worked out. One of the few things that really remains to kind of be an issue is the actual thing of story size photos. So this, for instance, vertical, this would not crop well down to something like this, right? A vertical sized image, kind of like this one. So we basically just moved things around a little bit, moved this one down here, and basically kind of structured it so that way it's a little easier to read through and a little easier to kind of pick through as far as what we want to do with it. And that just kind of helps overall conversion rates, and it helps for a more consistent performance across different types of placements, which can be a big deal. I'd highly recommend, if you want consistency, especially when you're testing creatives, is to basically have those vertical versions and then also have square versions that you can then utilize obviously in other methods. I think that's usually a pretty good idea in general. Now, just before we kind of get into some of the settings and everything, I want to scroll over here and show you guys just a couple more types of ad creatives and what we kind of typically do, right? Very outcome focused. Red arrows tend to perform really, really well because it's very obvious what you should be looking at, right? The red arrow kind of informs the viewer as to what they should be looking at. And then using contrasting colors can also really help too. These were examples of these ads performed decent. They weren't absolutely, amazing, but they performed decent, and they definitely got us quite a few customers from these ones. And they just had these kind of nice contrasting colors that made it very obvious to see, what the text said and kind of what it was leading to. I could sit in that Figma account all day and show you guys all the ad creatives. We're going to make a follow-up video called our ad creatives and actually go through everything and show you how to do that. But just before we get into the settings inside of our ad account, I want to show you guys how to make some really quick ad creatives if you don't have any design experience. This is going to be the easiest way to do that, and you just need ChatGPT. As you can see, I'm inside of ChatGPT right now, and I just gave it this prompt to give me 5 image prompts of Cortex Tools static image ads. Basically what I'm doing right now, I've taught my personal instance of ChatGPT everything it needs to know about my school offer. I've told it our price. I've told it our main selling point. I've told it what our demographics are, our psychographics, our audience, people who typically buy from us. What are they thinking? What are they looking for? Once I've done all of that, I then can hop into ChatGPT and ask very specific questions like this one, where it will basically give me a bunch of image generation prompts that I can think about how I want to implement them or if I want to generate them. Here's the first prompt here, which is a macOS Finder plus blue folder. And then this basically is going to end up showing, let's see here, Cortex Tools automation in text, and then put a small red circular badge at the top right of the folder tab that says price raising soon. Then we have a dark N8N canvas diagram, glass grid, right? So on and so forth. It comes up with a bunch of different image generation ads. And then one of the coolest parts about this is that all I have to do is copy this code. And then I can paste this into here. And then I just hit on this plus button, go to create image, and then hit the enter button. Now we'll actually start creating this image completely for me with a optimized image generation prompt that was built by ChatGPT, which means we're going to get a much better static ad than just me typing in, all kinds of, make this, do this, blah, blah, blah. They've covered pretty much everything, right? They've given us an exact canvas size. They've given us corner radiuses, outline lengths, the type of colors that we want, the specific color codes. These are much, much more effective image generation prompts, which lead to better outcomes that we can use in our ad creatives. As you can see here, it's going to create this image really quickly for us. It might take a little bit of a moment here, but top 3 automations to sell, and then it should create a 3 little graphics here, a lead scanner, voice phone agent, client portal. This is actually a really well done, simple ad, and you can make changes to this obviously by typing in whatever you want the edits to be, but this is a really good starting point. This is, I'm not kidding, how we generate about 60 to 70% of our ad creatives is we will use ChatGPT as an ideation tool to kind of come up with more creatives, so that way we can start using them inside of our process and basically use them effectively. Now, one of the last things I want to show you guys here is inside of the ad manager. I can't really show you exactly what we're doing inside of our ads just because we do have a couple of specific programs designed to help people with that, so I can't really dive too deep into that. But what I can show you is how I would go about setting up my very first campaign if I wanted to start running ads immediately right now to my school community. First thing I would do is I would hit create new campaign. I would run a sales campaign. All of these really don't matter. I would never bother with anything else. I want the sales campaign. I did the continue button, which would take me into this page right here, which is a campaign name, new sales campaign name. Then I would name it something like CBO Discovery, right? Which basically just means I'm running a campaign budget optimization campaign for discovery, right? I'll name this test. Basically, I'm going to go down here. I'm not going to change any of these settings. I'm not going to worry about any of this. This really doesn't matter. I'm going to, instead of ad set budget, if it's already set to that, I'm going to set it to campaign budget, which is this one right here. Then I'm going to set my daily budget. Instead of 25, I'm going to set it to around 50. If you don't have that much money, you don't have to set it to 50. You can set it to 10, 15. I've seen successful communities at lower prices on daily budgets. I just feel like if you are running anything above $27 a month for your school community, I'd highly recommend setting it around $50 or so just a day, because you're going to be able to get enough results, get data, and make better decisions. Rest of this, I'm going to leave pretty much normal. If you have an engaged audience, go ahead and add that. Same with existing customers. If you're just starting to run ads to your school community, or if you just turned on your Facebook pixel, you might not have that enabled yet. So definitely, think about doing that. Next thing inside of ad sets here, instead of websites and calls, we just do website. And then for the data set, we'd pick our specific school pixel. And then basically we maximize for a number of conversions, and then we would pick purchase as our event. Then for our ad set spending limit, again, don't really change much here. I launch my ads typically at midnight, but you can launch them at any time. There's not really a specific best time to launch your ads at anymore. It's not really a thing. Locations, I usually try to go a little bit broader than the United States. Sometimes I'll do English speaking countries like the United Kingdom, Canada, Australia, places like that. And then placements, I just leave alone. Then we have our actual ads individually. You make sure all your identities are all set up. So your Facebook page, your Instagram page, and even your Threads page. And then you set up your creative, you upload your creative, right? Make sure all of the formats are all taken care of. And then for the actual website URL, you just put your school about page. We don't run ads to landing pages. Every time we have ever tested that, and we only really tested for about a month, like 3 or 4 months ago, does not convert nearly as effectively or as much as just running ads to the school about page. So much more efficient, so much more effective. And it seems like people are much more responsive when you just take them straight to the about page where they can see everything, and you treat your about page like your landing page. That's kind of really the way that we've seen a lot of success. And you upload your ad creative right here. And then the rest of this, I think, is pretty much good to go. There's not really much else you need to change here. Once that's all good to go though, guys, you are pretty much ready to start running ads. If you're interested in getting started with Skool, I would highly recommend using that link down in the description. When you guys click that link, you'll be brought to a page that looks something like this one. You'll hit create community, enter in your first name, last name, email address, and password, which will create your Skool account. And you can get started for 14 days completely for free. You don't have to pay anything. And they just recently added a new tier that's only $9 a month, which is their hobby plan. So it's super cheap now to get started with Skool. It used to be $99 a month, but it's much cheaper than it was. If you guys have any questions, make sure to leave them down in the comment section. Hit that like button and the subscribe button so you never miss any of our future videos. Also, please remember that these are affiliate links and we could financially benefit from them at no extra cost to you. Thanks so much for watching. I'll see you guys in the next video.